Theresa May is under pressure to support a Brexiteer after the resignation of her International Development Secretary. The embattled Prime Minister is facing a second reshuffle in a week as she attempts to reassert her authority following the chaos of the last few days. Leave supporters are calling on Mrs May to replace Ms Patel, who backed Brexit, with one of their own to keep the LeaveRemain balance in her carefully balanced cabinet. But others are stressing that it will be equally important for the PM to appoint a woman in the current climate in Westminster around sexual misconduct allegations and following Michael Fallons' resignation last week over claims he inappropriately touched a female journalist. Priti Patel image Getty, who could replace sacked International Development Secretary Priti Patel in her first public comment since her resignation. Ms Patel said in a tweet, "An enormous thank you to friends, colleagues, constituents and the public for the support and kindness you have shown me over the last few days." This morning, former leader Iain Duncan Smith said his instinct was that the PM would seek to keep the balance in the cabinet, but that her number one consideration was to find the person she thinks is most able to do the job. Speaking to BBC Breakfast, the Tory MP played down suggestions that the cabinet was in chaos or that Ms Patel's departure would spark a reshuffle. "Theresa May is in full charge of this cabinet and I have no doubt at all her appointment today will reflect the nature of that," he said. Prominent Leave supporter Jacob ReesMogg said Ms Patel's replacement needed to be someone who was on board with Brexit even if they hadn't supported it from the beginning. He said, "I don't think it necessarily has to be someone who campaigned for Brexit. But it does have to be somebody who is now enthusiastic about Brexit." "I think that's correct," the outspoken MP told Channel 4. "I think the majority of Conservative members of Parliament are now both pro-Brexit in form and in meaning. There are some who have a veneer of pro-Brexit about them but aren't really. And there are a very small number who are deeply hostile." But he laughed when asked whether he would like to take Priti Patel's senior ministerial role. He gave a blunt response and said me no. Despite Ms Patel's resignation yesterday, Theresa May cannot consider the matter closed, with the opposition insisting there are questions to answer over her off-the-book meetings in Israel. It's another tough week for the PM image. PA Labour's deputy leader Tom Watson has written to Mrs May demanding further details of Ms Patel's meetings in Israel. Mr Watson said he had been told that the former International Development Secretary met officials from the British Consulate General in Jerusalem, which he said made clear that the Foreign Office was aware of her presence in the country. He demanded to know whether the Prime Minister or Foreign Office had suppressed information about the supposed meeting. Priti Patel quit over her damaging secret meetings with Israeli officials and PM Benjamin Netanyahu that could have left the impression Britain favours Tel Aviv over Palestine. In her resignation letter to Mrs May, she admitted that her actions fell below the high standards that are expected of a Secretary of State. She offered a fulsome apology and added, "While my actions were meant with the best of intentions, my actions also fell below the standards of transparency and openness that I have promoted and advocated." Priti Patel's resignation letter. Theresa May's letter to Priti Patel But. Speaking to BBC Radio 4's Today programme, Mr Watson said, "I would like to know the facts of this case, because it is very unusual. I was told that the Foreign Office deliberately asked Downing Street to remove details of the briefing she received from Foreign Office officials when she was in Israel." Tom Watson says the government still has questions to answer. Image PA, who is Priti Patel profile of International Development Secretary. If true, it shows that there was knowledge that Priti Patel was running a sort of independent foreign policy earlier, and that she's not been sacked for breaching the ministerial code and doing that, but she's been sacked because it became public that she was doing that. Responding to reports that EU officials were preparing for a possible change in government, Mr Watson said if Theresa May collapses, then the country is in a very bad place and would require a general election. "It does seem to me that we are in a very unstable situation at the heart of government and that random events could bring the government down. We are ready with our manifesto. We would be prepared to go into a general election with a bold set of policies.